metal community. I just watched a video that Jonas Subin Media made about where he made a list of his 10 favorite Swedish albums. So I watched the source video of this thread, and it's a DMBB1239's 69 LOL subscribers contest. 10 albums, number 1 to 10, no repeats, be creative. Well, of course, I haven't seen all the competitors in this thread, but I thought I will do my own list, and I don't think that anybody else would pick the same theme. I come from Sweden. I'm now going to be a bit teacher-like and picking up here an atlas with a map over, well, it's the whole Scandinavia here, but here we have Sweden. This is for those of you who don't know where Sweden is. Here is Stockholm, and that's where I live right now, or where I lived since 2006. But I come from a town up here called, can't see it, Luleå. And Luleå is a part of an area called Norrbotten, and that's in the northern part of Sweden. It's this part here. And I thought I'd make a list of my top 10 favorite albums that come from artists or bands from that part of Sweden. So that's what I've done. So let's start by checking out number 10. Here we have a singer and songwriter called Thomas Forsell, and an album called Ingenting står stilla. He's accompanied on this album by a band called Rekyl, and I will get back to them later. Also we have the great Swedish singer Turid Lundqvist singing on this album. It was released in 1977 and recorded in an old closed school in a part of Luleå called Karlsvik in 1977, as I said, and it was released on a label called Manifest. And I've talked about Manifest before in this channel because it was a very alive record label that released lots of good music from this part of Sweden. They existed from 1974 to 84, I think, for 10 years. So this is, and this record also contains some papers here. A newsletter from the record label Manifest, which is quite cool. Shows that this was probably something that was handed out to some journalist, and also another letter here with news about new upcoming records from this company, from this record label. All right, so it's good political thing. Oh, there's even more in here. What's that? Oh, a biography about Thomas Forsell. Oh, I forgot about that. Quite an impressive read here, if you want to know more about him. Of course, you have to know Swedish. So there's the whole press pack here, press package for this album. Anyway, Thomas Forsell would later be famous as a children entertainer. And he called himself Hakon Bacon, and he did lots of TV for children in the 80s and 90s. And his daughter is called Gry Forsell, and she's today quite famous TV personality in Swedish television. And she was one of the most admired girls in Luleå, my hometown, when I grew up. I remember because I'm her age. So, right, that's number 10. Thomas Forsell, Ingenting står stilla. Over to number 9, and we keep on the Manifest theme because this is the first Manifest issue by a music collective called Anton Svedbergs Svängäng. They recorded this at the Hermelinskolan, the school hall called Hermelinskolan. Their Ola, how do you say it? Well, the school stage at the school called Hermelinskolan, a school where I went myself many years later. And on this album we have lots of different kinds of artists. It's an artist collective who made this concert together that was recorded and then later released on this album. We have, well, many of the orchestras and musicians who would later make records on Manifest will find on this album as well. But I like to mention especially a singer and songwriter called P.O. Åström, who is a bit of a cult figure today. And he was very talented, great singer and great songwriter, but he passed away way too early due to drugs and other problems. But he's kind of a cult figure when it comes to Swedish music, especially up in northern Sweden. And he came from the same small village that my mother came from. So, well, that was number 9. Number 8 is this album, Norrbotten Big Band. The part of Sweden that I've been talking about is called Norrbotten, and this is their jazz orchestra, their big band, Norrbotten Big Band, and their first issue, Vindsång. And the only issue that they've made that's, I think, available on vinyl, because this was released in 1989. They have done several albums on CDs during the 90s and well, during the last 10 years as well. They are still very active, and they have their artistic leader now is the the well-respected jazz trumpet player Tim Higgins. Back in these days, the leader was called Örjan Fahlström. This was one of the first jazz albums I bought, because I hadn't really discovered jazz when I was 14, 15 years old, but I bought it because it was a local band. And today I'm very happy, because this record must be very hard to get, because it was only sold in a couple of stores in the small town Boden back then. So I don't know whether the selling of this album was more frequent than I think it was, but it says on the back sleeve, "Thank you for the stores in Boden who sell this." So I bought this in Boden as well back in 1989. Great big band jazz. They've done many interesting or been involved in many interesting projects. They cooperated with Blackness All Stars. They also made a record that contained the first act from Macbeth. Yeah, I think Macbeth. But with jazz music. Macbeth, Shakespeare's Macbeth. Was it Macbeth? I'm not sure now. But that some quite weird but interesting projects, and they are a very interesting band. And this is their first album that mixes both original compositions like Staffan Odenhals' Mahler meets Miles, and jazz compositions by Wayne Shorter and the leader Örjan Fahlström, and also old classics by Duke Ellington and Cole Porter, and it's a very good album. That was number 8. No, that was number 8. Number 7 then is another group on the Manifest label that I'm sure the members were part of this Anton Svedbergs Svängäng music community. It's a group called Norrbottens Järn, and they made 2 albums. This is the first one. The second one is very good as well. This one they had the singer Ted Ström with them, and this is political, progressive rock with lyrics. especially, well, quite good lyrics, but I think maybe the most admired piece of music from this album is an instrumental number called Flugornas hage, composed by one of the members, Bo Sundberg, who is a good friend of my YouTube friend Falkis, who I've referred to before. Well, and I think Falkis will be very happy to find this album on my list, because I know it's one of his favorite albums as well. So, what was that? 10, 9, 8, 7. Right. This may be a bit dreary or repetitive, but on 6th place in my list we have the composer Andreas Orflot, the Rivna Pianot, also on the Manifest label. This is from 1977. Andreas Orflot, very talented multi-musician. He played the saxophone, organ, piano, and he has on this album we also find members from both Rekyl and Norrbottens Albums, and the great singer Britt Nilsson. And this is very good progressive music. This is one of the best progressive albums that I know, especially that comes from northern Sweden. Andreas Orflot, the Rivna Pianot. And today also, he lives in Uppsala. And I work together with one of his, a relative to him, so the world is quite small. I always keep forgetting which number we are. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Okay, top 5. And now we're going to the neighbor city Piteå, where we during the 80s and beginning of the 90s had a group called Euskefeurat, and they have started again a couple of years ago, to my great pleasure, and also even released 2 new albums since then. Alas, only on CD, so I can't show them here, because here we talk vinyl records. But they made a handful vinyl records in the 1980s, and this is the first one I bought. It's a live album from 1982, and they mix comedy and Irish folk music, and also Swedish folk music a bit, but they are very influenced by Irish folk music, and their leader, Ron Eriksson, is today one of the most popular comedians in Sweden. He was quite unknown outside northern Sweden, where this record was issued back in 1982. This is called Levandes, and it's on their own label, Meukskrede. That was they have released all their albums on the Meukskrede label. Euskefeurat. Okay, number 4 then. Here we talk about folk music from northern Sweden with influences from Finland and a group called J.P. Nyströms. There were 3 vinyl albums. I think they made a CD since then too, but there were 3 vinyl albums. This is their 3rd one. It's called Vår Vinter. It's from 1987. It's got a beautiful sleeve. And it is issued on a label called Siljum. And here we find their music style is like 3 violins, 1 harmonium, and a bass, and some singing in the Finnish that they speak up. They're called Meänkieli, the Torne Valley Finnish. And their leader is the great violinist Svante Lindqvist. And they still play together today, this group also. They made 3 very good vinyl albums, and this was the best of them, from 1987. Vår Vinter. Right. One sad thing about these albums that I showed you is that almost nothing has been reissued since it was originally issued back in in the 70s and 80s, apart from the Euskeförat record that is available on CD. But you have to order it from one of the members of the band. The next group isn't available on CD as well, which I think is a great pity. It's a group called, and I've talked about them many times and mentioned them before in this video, Rekyl. This is their second album. They made 4 vinyl albums. I could show any of these, but this is their second album. It's called I himlen är det för sent. And very influenced by, well, the band, Rolling Stones, and you can hear it on the music, and good Swedish lyrics as well. And this guy that you can see here on the sleeve is called Björn Sjö, and he was my teacher many years later when I went to the school that I talked about, where this album was recorded. And he's a member of this album too, Björn Sjö. So, but all in all, a very good group, and this is, all of their albums are very good. Maybe I would have picked their last album, which was a live album, but no, I picked this anyway. I himlen är det för sent from 1978, also on Manifest. That's on place number 3. Okay, the next record is actually available on CD and on vinyl, and I showed it before, and I've been almost lyrical about it because I think it's so good, and it's this group, 67 Purple Fishes. I went and saw them play live when I was up in northern Sweden a couple of weeks ago, and I fell in love with this group and this issue, that also has a nice poster in it, like this. Am I saying too much if I think that this is the second? This is my second favorite when it comes to records from artists from northern Sweden. And I really hope that they will have a great career and that they will be able to tour all over Sweden and play, and maybe even abroad, who knows. I would place this at number 2 on my list, 67 Purple Fishes, an album that was released earlier this year in 2012. Okay, so what's on top of this list? Well, it's a group called Norrlåtar, and that group started as a project to record old folk music from northern Sweden. And it was done in a quite traditional manner with violins and a bit of accordion and so on. And they made several very good albums in the 70s and early 80s. And then they were regrouped, or one member left and 2 members joined. One of them was the drummer, Lars Gunnar Omberg, and the other member who joined was, we get back at this guy, Björn Sjö. And they gave new energy, new ideas to this group, and they became much more experimenting. They took these old traditional folk tunes and they played around with them. They made some sort of, it's very hard to describe, but they put in many other kinds of music and more modern instruments, although if the old traditional style was still the foundation, but it's more experimentative, or well, however you say it. And they made a couple of very good albums with that style, and this is, in my view, my favorite, Känslans Partisan from 1987 on the MNW label. I bought this when it was new for 25 years ago now, and I still think it's brilliant. It's brilliant, beautiful, and good lyrics in some of the songs, and also many interesting ideas, musical ideas, and I would place this as the #1 Norrbotten album, at least in my collection. Well, that was that. That was my list. Thank you for listening and watching. Bye bye.